Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CPA Moms podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Kehl. I'm the brand ambassador of CPA Moms, and today's episode is all about what's really possible when women own their value. I am here with Mayumi Young, a serial entrepreneur and the founder of CPA Moms. Mayumi has spent decades helping women step into their worth with clarity and courage. She has certainly been a vital influence on my own journey to finding both. Today, we are having a candid conversation about what it looks like to claim your value in a tangible way, whether it's in your pricing, your boundaries, or your leadership. If you have ever held yourself back or played small, we hope this one inspires you to take up some space. Welcome, Mayumi.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Yes. So please kick us off with what you feel like it actually means to own your value. Is it a mindset, a behavior, or both?
Well, I would say owning your own value is absolutely both a mindset and a behavior for sure. Um, I think that when, as women, when we think about value, we replace that with self-worth, a sense of importance to others, and certainly to ourselves. And I think, sort of the design of women has always been, or would say biologically, to put ourselves second. And that's just pure biology. If you are a mother and you have a child to take care of, there's a reason why the flight attendants say, put the mask on yourself first. They have to remind us to take care of ourselves before we take care of others, because the hard wiring is there for purpose of evolution and just pure biology is to protect others, your young, your loved ones first. And so this is a very a tricky conversation to have, because we're going somewhat against nature in some respects if we talk about behaviors and ways of being, and I find this to be one of the most challenging areas of development, and because we don't want to remove that natural caring aspect of who we are as women. But then how do you balance that with having a sense of ourself, a knowing actually that what we contribute is valuable? Let's just take a simple example. I know we're talking to professional working women, but to drive this point, if you were, or if you have ever been a stay-at-home mom, and let's say you're married and your spouse is the breadwinner for the home, how do you connect to your own sense of value when society has a diminished view or association of monetary value of your contribution to raising a family and running a household? It is insanely difficult to do all of those things. It is a full-time effort for sure, to the point where, as working in professional women, I challenge women who are either in full-time careers or running businesses, and also investing the same energy in running a household and raising a family. And my challenge is, you don't need to do your laundry or cook your food or da 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 da, outsource that. If you're going to be a professional working woman, then you need to look at where you can outsource some of those household responsibilities. And to the extent that you don't outsource your parenting piece, great, right? And like really design it so that you can be the parent you want to be and have a career. That being said, we really need to redefine for ourselves, what is the math? What's the formula? What's the real true definition of value? Because value can't be numeric. If you're talking about that scenario, it's not a numeric equation. So what is it really? And obviously it's unique for each person, but really, I think the ultimate definition is, how do you feel? Do you feel respected for your contribution, appreciated for your contribution? And do you feel valuable? I don't know that I can put a tangible formula onto that because it's a personal assessment and everyone can feel different. Like someone who is a stay-at-home mom and has a breadwinner spouse that is totally appreciative of their contribution, totally believes that they're a huge contributor to the family and to their life, that woman might still not feel valued. And it's not because value can't come from someone outside of us. We can't feel value because someone else values us, appreciates us, acknowledges us. It is an inside game. And so I'll leave it there. And I know you have more questions about the topic, but I think it really boils down to our own perception of what we believe our value is and what our worth is. And I'll say one other thing before you do that. One more thing. As a working professional woman, I do have an association to a numeric value for myself, what I believe my time and my talents are worth, and how much I want to be paid for that time. And if there is a disparity between what I perceive my current value to be, and by the way, that number has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown over the years. If there's a disparity between my current self-perceived value and what I'm actually being paid, let's say my value myself is here, if we're talking pure numerics now and being compensated, and this is what I'm actually receiving, this gap, as it gets bigger, becomes more and more painful. And that becomes a clue for us that we are not in alignment with our own sense of our own value. And it's our job to reconcile that. It's our job to bring that into alignment, not to lower our standards to meet where we are, but to deal with whatever is in the way of us operating and tolerating this level so that we can rise up to meet the value that we have set and that we believe is for ourselves. And don't get too comfortable here for too long because you'll get there. And then sure enough, that gap will happen. And it's just and that's life. So I hope I answered your question, but that's my best explanation for it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good distinction. I think a lot of times people hear the word value and they immediately think about money. And that is hard if you are, as you gave the example, a stay-at-home mom, because then that completely takes away. And that's, I know there's a struggle a lot of times as we have turned into a world where women are in the workforce in majority of homes now. Some choose then to go and take that time and stay at home with the kids for a little while, or they have aging parents, something forces them to be out of work, then that really really hits hard as, oh well, now I don't have any self-worth, as you said. So I really like how you separated those and kind of gave a definition of both of them, if you will, because those truly are not the same and should not be put as the same. So, why do you think that especially women in accounting struggle to recognize and own their value even while they are working?
I think this may be true for all professional working women. I don't know that this is unique to the accounting industry, but we're a professional service organization that has predominantly been owned and led by men. It was designed by men for men 200 years ago or whatever. And so there's a kind of indoctrination process that happens where the collective profession and the professionals in the industry line up and tune up to this sort of culture. And I can only speak to my own personal experience. I don't have pedigree or, credentials to say exactly how it is for women in the workplace, but I can speak to my own personal experience that I witnessed a huge devaluing of women who did not devote themselves to the job in the same way as their male counterparts, which basically meant hustle, grind, long hours, arrive, is sort of the arrive before your boss and leave after they go, like that sort of mentality. Prioritize work over everything else. And, I witnessed, if you were a working mom and you needed to leave early or arrive late, or you had a sick child, or it's like a scarlet letter. I mean, it's still to this day, it is perceived as being, the perception is that you are not worth as much as someone who doesn't have a child. And I can't say that I think that that's, I think that's a fairly pervasive thing, but especially in more male dominated industries. And this, by the way, and when I say male, female, I want to be really crystal clear. I love men. This is not an anti-men. I'm not going to male bash. This is, I'll speak to it like biology, right? Like, and this is just how the industry became what it is. That's cultural. Like most industries, especially service industries, were birthed from this generation of hustle. And I think culturally we're shifting, men and women. You see this younger generation, which they are being crucified, by the way, for standing up for a different standard of life and quality of life. Crucified as being lazy, entitled brats. And I'm not saying there isn't parts of that, but I think that's all youth. I mean, I think every generation said that about the youth. However, I think that there's a lot of resistance to accept that someone who has established strong boundaries around their life and their time and their family, that equation of equals less value or isn't producing as much or as well is becoming more and more clear and apparent that that's a false assumption. And leaders who are recognizing and understanding that that's not really where value shows up. How is that person treating your customer? How is that person technically proficient at what they know? And we need to begin to shift. I mean, the whole value billing era caused us to stop calculating the value of our work based on our time. We're slowly, still even as an industry, adopting that with our clients. But where have we started adopting that value billing, value payment compensation model for our teams? Because we're saying, okay, well, we're going to value bill our clients, but we're going to keep paying our employees hourly fixed based on the number of hours. Therefore, we're motivated by how we're compensated. So that creates a culture where somebody is going to work in order to get paid. But what if the value and the compensation they receive isn't tied to the number of hours that they work? Would you get a different production? Would you get a different outcome? And do you really care if it took someone 5 hours to produce the result that you were after, or 20 hours? No, you don't. You care about the result. But if we're truly going to, and when I first started, the first model of firm that I created, I had value billing. We were doing value billing in 2009 before there was even a term for it, because I thought hourly billing was insane. I was tired of defending my value to my clients. And so I got rid of it. And that focused everybody on, what am I producing for you? And I also experimented with paying my teams a percentage of the billing, no flat rate. So if you found a way to get the job done and were more effective and more productive in how you delivered the work, and you could do it faster, you made more, because you were getting the same amount whether you worked an hour or you worked 5 hours. And I thought it worked really well. It helped me stay inside of my financial model for my firm. And it allowed the control. And this isn't public accounting versions of billing rates, by the way, where I was set up. I worked for salary back with no overtime in one of the big four. I won't name them. Well, actually I will. Anyways, no, I won't bother. We don't need to call them out. And at the time, all the other big four firms, I was big six back then, all paid overtime. And when I was hired, they said, well, why would we pay overtime for someone who's less efficient? And I'm like, okay, that's logical. That makes sense. That's fair. And then I saw the manipulation of what they did. They had histories of years of doing the particular audits that I used to perform. They had years where they knew it took 60 hours to do the job, and yet they only booked you for a week.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about efficiency. It was a manipulation and taking advantage of their team. It wasn't like, look, every year, everyone before you did it in 40 hours. So we're budgeting you for 1 week. Now, if you take 60, that's on you. But if you can get it done in 30, good for you. That didn't happen. It was known in historical and proven that they were setting you up to fail. So I'm not talking about that kind of value billing with your team, but I'm talking about legitimate. This is truly what you have, maybe evidence of, this is how long it takes or how long it takes you to do it. So fairly compensating. You're not setting people up to fail, because that will destroy the entire trust and bond that you have with your team. But gosh, what would be possible is if your team had control over their production. Now, their quality and their standard of work cannot diminish. But it's because we're having a conversation about value, it's just a challenge. Like, what would that look like? Now, I had a little bit of, it was difficult for me to find an employee compensation model. I had to look at like sales professionals and commission structure and hourly versus hourly and to be able to pay a percentage, which is not normal in the accounting industry. So you've got to understand the HR rules around it. But really, it's more right now, whether you choose to adopt something like that or not, philosophically, if you think about, valuing your team members from that place, I think you're going to look for different characteristics that for you raise the value. And it's not how many hours can you work, or can you work these specific hours. You're going to be looking for a lot of different qualities to say that that person is more valuable than this other person over there.
Yeah, that's very interesting, I think. Take on a different shift and way to look at it. It's interesting, just to think through that and how you would fit that in and make it work. But I think that I agree, it not only, shifts what you're going to look at in them, but it shifts the entire culture of what you're building, and just creates a completely different culture and environment for even those that are working for you.
Yeah, it's building a culture of intrapreneurs.
Right.
Intrapreneurs. They're entrepreneurial minded, but they appreciate the structure. They don't want all the responsibility that comes with ownership and entrepreneurship, but they have that mindset. and they have that owner and I'm responsible kind of way of being and behaviors and level of integrity, this kind of model only works for entrepreneurs. You can't apply this kind of model for somebody with an employee mindset. It won't work. So, but then you raise the culture to people who own their role and have a higher level of responsibility. And I find professional working women to be some of the most, I'm not going to say entrepreneurial, but some of the most responsible, because you have to be super disciplined and organized in how you allocate your time when you've got 1,000 moving parts and moving school schedules and all these things that you're navigating. And then that's not even consistent year round. And then there's summer season, and then there's this, and God forbid that you have special needs, or you've got other life that needs and demands your attention. And we're always juggling and balancing all of those things in some kind of harmonic dance at all points every day of our life. So like if I wanted somebody who's just gonna punch it out and doesn't need to dance and flow with life, then perhaps professional working moms aren't the right fit for your regimented model. But if you need somebody who can be fluid and can dance and can prioritize and can be responsible and get it done, they're not worried about the time they're doing it, but that it gets done, then you're dealing with the kind of culture that is a match for the environment. I always create businesses that are constantly pivoting. And so having somebody who knows how to juggle and pivot quickly based on what's going on works. And you can't have that kind of rigidity of like, it has to be this way and can never change. So anyways, so back to value. I'll stop there and send it back to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that also it helps your employees step into their own value, if you will. And I know that there is sometimes a struggle with that and maneuvering that and stepping into your own value, and or even aligning what you know your worth to be to the actions that need to be taken to get you there. And I mean, you talked kind of about that gap, and I think that a lot of women can recognize, I see my worth as this, but I'm here, but then struggle to even take any action to shrink that gap at all. Do you have any tips on that, on how to, or just one small shift, one small step to take to start to decrease that gap?
I think the single most important thing starts with awareness. Without awareness that a gap exists, you can do nothing with that. It has you, you don't have it. Once you have awareness, it's kind of like in the background, if this is your sense of value, if it's back here and everywhere you look, you can't see it. You can't do anything about this. But the minute you pull it forward and you can see it and you can name it and you can define it and you can measure it and you can color it, then you have command over it. Now you're at choice. You have no choice about what's in your blind spot, what you can't see. But once you're aware of something and you can see it and you can name it, you have choice. Now, we all know how to lose weight and get healthy, and we're at choice in what we do. So just because you have awareness doesn't mean that you're going to take actions that produce the outcome that you're committed to. But it's the first step, isn't it? Always to recognize I have a weight issue, or I have a health issue, or I have a self-worth issue to address, and defining what you believe your worth is. And then you can say, well, here's where I feel like I am being seen as valuable. Maybe in your relationships or your marriage or with your children or with your friends, you feel valued. And maybe it's just in your work, or maybe it's with your parents, you don't feel valued, or your spouse, you don't feel valued. it can be in a certain segment of your life. It doesn't have to be that I feel unworthy everywhere or I feel less than everywhere. And remember, no one over there can make you feel valuable. No one outside of you. It's when I always say this phrase, you get what you tolerate. And if you tolerate a certain way that you've been perhaps treated, a certain way that you've been compensated, a certain way that you've been recognized in your role, maybe you have wanted a promotion and you know that you're capable of doing more work and you've been overlooked for that and you've tolerated it. Maybe you've wanted to go out on your own and your spouse has been against you in doing that for whatever reason, or your parents have said, you can't do that, or somebody has implanted in your consciousness that you're not qualified or you shouldn't do that, but in your heart of hearts that that's the next step for you and that you've outgrown where you are right now and there's no place up on the ladder you want to go inside of the working space, wherever you are in life, wherever you feel that you have not, the outside world isn't a match for your inside world, then the second step after awareness and naming it and identifying what it is and defining what your value is to you or what you perceive your set point is right now. Remember, it is always changing and evolving and growing. So for today, then the next step for me is going to be to maybe take a blank piece of paper and just free write everything that you've been tolerating. No one's going to see this. You don't have to be nice about it. I've been putting up with this. I put up with that. I tell my kids, put their socks in the duh. They don't do that. Tolerating this, tolerating that. This person's been speaking to me in unacceptable way. Everything, everywhere, anywhere that you've been putting up. I've been putting up with this crooked picture. I've been putting up with this car that's broken. I've been putting up with not getting paid enough. I've been putting up with it. And then I want you to read it and I want you to get good and mad. Because there's this might be a good giveaway, Nicole, that pairs with this conversation. There's a book by Stephen Hawking's and another book by Jerry and Esther Hicks. The Stephen Hawking's book is called Power versus Force, and the Jerry and Esther Hicks book is called Ask and It Is Given. And they both talk about an emotional it's emotional scale. And I love this scale. Like maybe we can get a screenshot of you, just Google it. You'll find an image of this emotional scale. And at the very bottom is like despair. And at the very top is like pure bliss. And it rates the scale, gives it a number from 0 to, I think, 1,000. And the set point of 200 is set at courage. And courage is a doorway between everything below 200, all the emotions, fear, worry, shame, guilt, resentment, jealousy, anger, all these feelings underneath 200 are all obviously negative energy, but they're all in the world of survival. And everything above the level 200 is at the frequency of possibility. And so masters like Tony Robbins and great work by organizations like Landmark Worldwide, they are designed to help human beings move from all these emotional levels and energetic levels and frequencies below 200 by forcing people to build courage. And by being courageous where they haven't been, they pop them out to the other side. Why do you think Tony has people walking on hot coals? That act of courage pops them out of this survival mechanism into pure possibility. And when you're there, you can create any life you want. And the reason I'm saying that It's because that ambivalence, resignation, that this is how it is, that, shame, that guilt, that unworthiness feeling, all that's down here. And what's powerful about the work, especially ask and it's given, that's probably the best tool that'll give you literally a blueprint. It'll say, check in with what emotion you have right now in this moment. Oh, I feel resentment. Okay, great. It's too big of a leap to go from resentment to love. It's like energetically, you have to go through 10 emotions to get there. It's why we fail and that we get stuck here, because you can't make that leap. But you can maybe go up one emotional level or two. That's realistic. And guess what? 2 levels up might be anger. Anger might be the emotion you need to feel to get out of the state that you're in so that you can take the actions and have the courage to take the actions that would have you stop tolerating a life that doesn't serve you anymore. Because otherwise we're trying to manipulate ourselves. We're trying to convince ourselves that we need to work out today or we need to stand up for ourselves today. And then the words just don't come out because the beingness isn't a match for your intention and your desires. And let's deal with it for women, especially at the level of emotion. I think if you can tap into what the emotion is, you can name the emotion, and you get a tool like the book Ask and It's Given. For $15, it'll give you 42 different ways to identify the emotion you're in right now and practically move up. And again, as women, we're not allowed to be angry. We're not allowed to speak up. We're not allowed to shout, because then we're called what? The angry bitch? No. So here's an opportunity for us to own our power and our voice again in a way that's congruent with who we are without having to become a man to do it, to stay in your feminine power. And looking at a list that you write out of all the things you've been tolerating, when you recognize that you have chosen to put up with these things, the minute you can own that you have allowed this to happen, nobody did any of these things to you. You're not a victim of any of this. The minute you can own that I'm responsible for how people treat me because I allowed them to treat me this way. The minute you can own that, now you have matched up and paired up with the level. You have to arrive at a level of being in a true, authentic, emotional place where you can own your stuff. And the minute you're there, you can come up with any action you want. The actions won't matter because it's all about be, do, have. Once you become the owner and responsible party of your life, where you're no longer going to tolerate, and you raise your standards, so you no longer tolerate being treated a certain way, being paid a certain way, being spoken to a certain way, then it will stop happening and you will know what to say. You will know what to do. You will know when to do it. You will know how to do it, because the doing is always a match for who you're being. And if you're down low frequency in the victim, blame, resentment, ambivalence, resignation, then the doings are going to be a match for that way of being. So you need to summon that tigress, that lioness inside of you, like someone's about to steal your child, that woman, trade who you've been being, exchange into the powerhouse woman that's in there who has a voice. You've muted her, unmute her, let her speak, let her roar, and let her say, I have a choice, and this is not my choice. And I may not know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I do know one thing. The next time somebody speaks to me in that manner, I'm going to tell them that is unacceptable and I won't stand for it. You don't have to be rude, but you can be firm and you can hold people to account and hold those boundaries. So to me, these are the steps. You have to have awareness. You have to check in with yourself and really calibrate. Where are you now on that emotional scale? Where do you want to be? And use tools like Ask and It's Given to recalibrate yourself to higher levels of energy, empowerment. Find your roar, find your power, grab the steering wheel called your life, and the actions will follow.
Right. Right. Great. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for listening today. I really hope that this conversation has given you permission to take up a little bit more space, speak with a little bit more clarity, and just to remember that your value isn't a dollar number. It's not related to that at all. It's something that you already have, and you just need to recognize it. And as Mayumi said, close that gap, bring it up. Thank you so much for being here. That is it for today's episode. At CPA Moms, we believe women can have a successful career and raise a happy family. If you are ready to embrace work-life harmony and connect with like-hearted women, join our CPA Moms Facebook community. Just click the link in the show notes or search CPA Moms on Facebook. We can't wait to welcome you. Until next time, thank you for being here. We see you, we believe in you, and we can't wait to grow with you.